Hello, and welcome to this powerful story. Today, we are going to talk about a woman the world still remembers, even 60 years after her death. A woman who had beauty, fame, and millions of fans, but also pain, loneliness, and a heart that was breaking quietly every day. This is not just the story of a Hollywood actress. This is the story of a small girl named Norma Jean, who became the world's most famous woman. Marilyn Monroe. But behind her smile, behind her beauty, was a life full of sadness, heartbreak, secrets, and silent tears. This is the story of how a little girl with no father, no home, and no love became the icon of beauty and died too young, still searching for love. This story will not only touch your heart, it will also improve your English language. You will learn new words, emotions, sentence structure, and how to listen and understand real storytelling in simple English. So enjoy the story and grow your English every day. Let's start from the very beginning, the part no one talks about. Marilyn Monroe was not born Marilyn. Her real name was Norma Jean Mortensen. She was born on June 1, 1926 in Los Angeles, California. Her mother's name was Gladys Pearl Baker. Her father? She never knew him. Gladys wrote the name Edward Mortensen on her birth certificate, but he was not the real father. The real man was someone else, a man named Charles Stanley Gifford, but he never accepted her. He left, disappeared, never looked back. Norma Jean was born already rejected by the man who should have protected her. Her mother, Gladys, worked as a film cutter in Hollywood. But she had a terrible problem. She was mentally ill. Sometimes Gladys smiled and talked with her daughter, but other times she screamed, cried, or stared into nothing. She had paranoid schizophrenia, a serious brain illness. She believed people were trying to take her daughter away. One night, she even tried to smother young Norma with a pillow. When Norma Jean was just 7 years old, her mother was taken to a hospital and never came back. That was the day Norma Jean's life completely broke. No father, no mother, no love, no home. She became a ward of the state, a child with no family. For the next years, she lived like a paper blowing in the wind. No place was hers. She was moved from one foster home to another, 11 in total. Sometimes she stayed with relatives, sometimes with strangers, sometimes in an orphanage that felt like prison. She slept on cold beds, she wore old clothes, she ate alone. But worse than hunger or cold was the fear. In one foster home, she was sexually abused by a man. She told someone, but no one believed her. She stopped talking about it. She started building a fake smile, the kind the world would one day know. She said later, "A smile is the best makeup a girl can wear." But that smile started back then, as a way to hide the pain. When Norma Jean turned 16, something happened. Her foster family had to move, but couldn't take her. If she didn't find a home, she would return to the orphanage. To avoid that, she married her neighbor's son, a 21-year-old man named James Dougherty. She didn't marry for love. She married to survive. At just 16 years old, she became a wife. She cooked, cleaned, and tried to be a good housewife. But deep down, she knew this was not the life she wanted. Her dreams were bigger, much bigger. In 1944, her husband joined the U.S. Navy and went to war. Norma Jean got a job in a factory, making parachutes for soldiers. One day, a photographer came to the factory. He was taking pictures of women working for a war magazine. He saw Norma. He asked her to pose. She smiled, posed, and the camera fell in love. That photo was printed, then another, and another. Suddenly people were asking, "Who is this girl?" That was the beginning of something huge. In 1946, she signed her first movie contract. The studio told her, "You need a better name." So she chose Marilyn, inspired by a Broadway star. And the studio gave her Monroe, her mother's maiden name. That was the day Norma Jean died, and Marilyn Monroe was born. But deep inside, she was still the scared little girl searching for love, for safety, for someone to stay. Marilyn Monroe had her new name, but that was just the beginning. She was no longer Norma Jean, the girl who cleaned houses and cried in the dark. Now she had to become Marilyn, the woman the world wanted to look at, desire, and dream about. But the world didn't make it easy. When she signed with 20th Century Fox in 1946, she was full of hope. But the studio said she wasn't ready for big roles. They told her to take acting classes, lose weight, dye her hair blonde, and fix her teeth. She did it all, quietly, patiently. She worked harder than anyone. She watched other actresses on screen and practiced every expression. She studied how to walk, how to talk, how to make people watch her. And slowly, they did. But she didn't get big roles, not yet. In the beginning, she played small parts: the pretty girl, the dumb blonde, the background beauty. In 1949, before she became a star, she had no money. She was behind on rent. She was hungry. She had no husband, no family, no safety net. So she did something bold. She posed nude for a calendar photo, lying on red velvet with nothing on her body. She used a fake name and took the money, $50, just to survive. Later, when she became famous, people found out. The media expected her to be ashamed. But Marilyn didn't lie. She simply said, "I was hungry. What could I do?" And the world, they didn't judge her. They loved her even more. She became the symbol of courage, honesty, and raw beauty. She didn't hide her past. She turned it into power. Her real rise came in 1950 to 1953. She appeared in movies like The Asphalt Jungle, 1950, All About Eve, 1950, Niagara, 1953, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953, How to Marry a Millionaire, 1953. In these films, Marilyn wasn't just a pretty face. She was funny, charming, and glowing on screen. Audiences around the world fell in love with her. One scene made her unforgettable, singing "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend" in a pink dress, surrounded by men in tuxedos. That became one of the most iconic moments in film history. In 1954, Marilyn married again, this time to Joe DiMaggio, a baseball legend. He was strong, silent, and deeply in love with her. But their love was full of trouble. Joe didn't like how men looked at Marilyn. He hated the sexy dresses, the camera flashes, the public attention. One day, while filming the movie The 7-Year Itch, Marilyn stood over a subway grate, and her white dress blew up in the air, a now iconic image. Thousands of men watched and cheered. Joe DiMaggio was furious. That night, he hit her. She cried. He apologized. But just 9 months after their wedding, Marilyn filed for divorce. She said the marriage was full of emotional cruelty. Joe loved her, but couldn't accept who she was. Marilyn wanted to shine. He wanted her to hide. Marilyn was tired of being called a dumb blonde. People loved her body, her smile, her voice. But they didn't see her mind, her dreams, or her pain. She once said, People had a habit of looking at me as if I were some kind of mirror. They didn't see me. They only saw themselves. She started reading serious books: psychology, poetry, philosophy. She wrote in journals every day: deep thoughts, fears, dreams. She began working with famous acting coach Lee Strasberg in New York. She joined the actor's studio, where serious actors trained. She wanted to be respected, not just loved. In 1956, she married again, this time to Arthur Miller, a brilliant playwright. He was the author of Death of a Salesman and other famous plays. Marilyn hoped this marriage would be different. Arthur was smart, kind, calm. He saw her as more than a sex symbol. They moved to New York. She tried to become a serious actress, and in 1956 starred in Bus Stop, where critics praised her performance. She started her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions. A bold move in a male-dominated world. But the marriage with Arthur Miller slowly fell apart too. She read his diary once and saw that he had written, "I married her, but I am disappointed." That broke her heart. She never truly recovered from those words. As the years passed, Marilyn became more fragile. She had insomnia, couldn't sleep without pills. She had panic attacks before filming. She was often late, scared, exhausted. She suffered several miscarriages. She wanted a baby so badly, but her body couldn't hold one. Each miscarriage left her more broken inside. She took more pills, for sleep, for nerves, for pain. She started drinking more. She was late to sets. She forgot lines. Directors became angry. Studios started losing faith. She was drowning, quietly. During this time, Marilyn was rumored to have affairs with many powerful men. The most famous? President John F. Kennedy. She sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" in 1962, wearing a skin-tight dress in front of thousands. The world was shocked. The rumors exploded. Was she his lover? Was it true? She never confirmed it. But the smile she gave him that night told the world. Something had happened. Later, people whispered that she also had an affair with JFK's brother, Robert Kennedy. Some say she knew too much. Some say she was silenced. But what we do know is this. Behind the fame, Marilyn was deeply alone. In her last interviews, she often said things like, "Fame doesn't fulfill you. It warms you a bit, but that warmth is temporary." In 1962, Marilyn Monroe was still a global superstar. She was rich. She was famous. But she was also deeply broken on the inside. She was 36 years old, young by today's standards. But she had already lived through a lifetime of pain. Behind the camera flashes, red carpets, and diamonds, she was falling apart. That year, she was cast in a new film called Something's Got to Give. It was supposed to be her big comeback, a fresh chapter in her career. The studio, 20th Century Fox, had high hopes. But Marilyn was not well. She would often come late to the set, or not at all. Sometimes she arrived, stood quietly, then disappeared without filming. She had no energy, no sleep, and no peace in her heart. She was dealing with pneumonia, a sinus infection, and deep emotional exhaustion. But the media didn't care. They said she was difficult, unprofessional, lazy. She wasn't lazy. She was hurting. Still, when she did show up, she gave magic. She filmed a famous scene in a swimming pool, wearing nothing at all, smiling at the camera like a goddess. It became one of her most iconic moments, even though the film was never finished. In May 1962, after too many delays, the studio did something shocking. They fired Marilyn Monroe. Fired the most famous woman in the world. The media laughed. People said, "She's finished." Others said she was crazy, addicted, and unreliable. But then, just weeks later, the studio changed its mind. They realized no one could replace her. The fans still loved her, so they begged her to come back. They even gave her a raise. She had won, but she wasn't celebrating. Inside, she felt exhausted, confused, and trapped between two worlds. The world of Marilyn, the fantasy, and the world of Norma Jean, the broken girl. That summer, Marilyn's life went out of control. She had fired her longtime publicist and changed therapists. She was cutting people out of her life, one by one, even those who truly cared. She was mixing sleeping pills, anti-anxiety drugs, and alcohol. A dangerous combination. But she couldn't stop. She couldn't sleep. She cried alone. She wrote sad things in her notebooks, thoughts about worthlessness, emptiness, and death. She missed her ex-husband, Joe DiMaggio. They had started speaking again. He still loved her. He wanted to protect her. He even planned to remarry her. He was the only man who came back. But Marilyn was slipping away. That Saturday seemed quiet. She spoke with several people on the phone, her psychiatrist, her maid, her friends. She seemed okay, maybe even cheerful. But then night came. Her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, said Marilyn went into her bedroom at around 8 p.m. and closed the door. She didn't come out. At 3:30 a.m., Eunice became worried. The door was locked. No sound inside. She called Marilyn's psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson. They broke the window and went inside. Marilyn Monroe was lying on her bed, naked, face down, holding a telephone. Beside her bed were empty pill bottles. Too many. She was already cold. The most famous woman in the world was gone. The official cause of death was listed as probable suicide due to barbiturate overdose. She had taken too many sleeping pills, no signs of violence, no notes. But to this day, many believe it wasn't that simple. Some say it was an accident, that she didn't want to die, just sleep. Others say it was murder. Here are the most powerful theories. 1. The Kennedy connection. She knew too much. She was calling the White House too often. Some believe government agents silenced her. 2. The mafia theory. She had connections to powerful men. Maybe she was used and became dangerous. 3. The psychiatrist involvement. Her doctor gave her too many pills. He was trying to control her, and it went too far. But the truth? No one really knows. What we know is this. She died alone, with the phone in her hand. Maybe calling for help, maybe saying goodbye. After her death, Joe DiMaggio took care of everything. He arranged her funeral. He didn't let any Hollywood people attend. No actors, no studio bosses, no fakes, just family and close friends. For the next 20 years, Joe sent fresh roses to her grave 3 times a week. He never married again. He never forgot her. In the end, the man who couldn't handle her fame was the only one who stayed loyal until the end. After her death, people found her personal journals and notes. One page said, "Please don't make me a joke. I want to be a great artist, not a circus act." Another said, "I just want to be wonderful." And in one of her letters, "To all the people who have ever loved me, I hope I was good to you." She was not just a pretty face. She was a woman full of hope, thought, poetry, and pain. Marilyn Monroe was buried on August 8, 1962, in a quiet crypt at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. She wore a green Emilio Pucci dress, chosen by her ex-husband Joe DiMaggio. Her makeup and hair were done by her personal stylist, the last time the world would touch her. The press stood outside the gates. Fans cried in silence. And inside the small chapel, Joe stood near her coffin, in tears. He whispered only 3 words. I love you. When the news of Marilyn Monroe's death spread, the entire world stopped. In Paris, people lit candles. In Japan, fans gathered in theaters to watch her films. In New York and Los Angeles, crowds stood outside her home and wept. The President of the United States didn't make a public comment. His silence only made the rumors louder. Every newspaper in the world had her photo on the front page. Marilyn Monroe dead at 36. But no headline could capture the heartbreak. The woman who brought smiles to millions died alone with sadness in her heart. Years after her death, people discovered something shocking. The FBI had a secret file on Marilyn Monroe. They had been watching her, recording her calls, and tracking her relationships, especially with John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. Why? Because Marilyn had started attending meetings with left-wing thinkers, poets, artists, and even people accused of having communist connections. The U.S. government during the Cold War was afraid. A woman with deep access to the White House, who had mental struggles, and who knew private secrets. They saw her as a potential danger. Some believe these files are the missing key to her death. But even today, most of those files are sealed, locked, hidden, silent. Years after her death, Marilyn's personal items were stored, hidden, and later auctioned for millions of dollars. Here are just a few. Her famous white dress from the 7-Year Itch sold for $4.6 million. The most expensive movie dress in history. Her handwritten diaries, poems, and letters were bought by private collectors. Her lipsticks, shoes, and perfume bottles are now displayed in museums. Even the prescription pill bottles from her nightstand were sold. People wanted to own a piece of her. Even in death, Marilyn became a business. Her face printed on t-shirts, posters, makeup, perfumes. Some found it beautiful. Others said it was exploitation, the same thing that broke her. After her death, several men who had once pushed her away came forward with regret. Arthur Miller, her third husband, said in an interview, "I misunderstood her pain. I wish I had done more. She didn't want fame. She wanted to matter." Even Robert Kennedy, in a private conversation, reportedly said, "I think we failed her. I failed her." Many people thought Marilyn was just a beauty queen, a dumb blonde. But in her own journals, she wrote things that shocked the world. Quotes like, "I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of being forgotten. Fame is like caviar. You get tired of it. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to be real." She read books by Freud, Tolstoy, and Dostoevsky. She wrote letters to herself that were filled with sadness and longing. One letter said, "What if I wake up tomorrow and no one loves me? What if all this beauty is just a mask?" She was not a doll. She was a poet, a deep thinker, a sensitive woman trapped in a golden cage. Marilyn Monroe became a symbol, not just of beauty, but of how women suffer in silence. She inspired generations of actresses who saw her as the original rebel, writers who used her life as a metaphor for pain behind glamour, feminists who studied how Hollywood controlled her image, young girls who learned that outer beauty can never fix inner wounds. Her life started a global conversation about mental health, body image, misogyny in the film industry, the cost of fame, how society treats vulnerable women. Even today, her story helps women find their voice. Decades after her death, Marilyn Monroe is still everywhere. In fashion, designers like Versace, Dior, and Chanel recreate her looks. In music, Madonna, Beyoncé, Nicki Minaj, and Lady Gaga all pay tribute to her. In films, from My Week with Marilyn, 2011, to documentaries in 2022 and 2023. In tattoos, paintings, museums, even AI-generated voices in digital art. Marilyn has become more than a person. She's a symbol of longing, mystery, beauty, and sadness. Everyone talks about her body, her smile, her films. But do you know what Marilyn truly wanted? She once said, "I don't want to be rich. I want to be loved, truly loved. I want a baby. I want to sing lullabies. I want peace." She dreamed of a quiet home, a baby's cry, a hand to hold at night. She didn't want diamonds. She didn't want crowds. She just wanted to feel safe. In one of her final notes, she wrote, "I hope people don't just remember my body. I hope they remember my heart." And the world answered her. We didn't forget. We still talk about her. We still cry for her. We still wish someone had saved her. Marilyn Monroe died at just 36 years old. But in those 36 years, she lived a life that millions of people still talk about today. Why? Because her story was not just about a movie star. It was the story of a girl who felt unloved, who fought through pain, who smiled even when she was crying inside, and who never gave up, even when the world was too heavy to carry. She left this world long ago, but her life still speaks. Her story still whispers in the ears of people who feel alone, unseen, or not enough. The world remembers her face, her lips, her blonde hair, her voice. But her real legacy is much bigger than her looks. She taught us that. Even the most beautiful people can feel deep sadness. Fame and money do not guarantee happiness. Childhood trauma leaves marks that fame cannot erase. The world will praise you when you shine and leave you when you fall. She showed us how a person can keep going, even when they feel broken inside. In the 1950s, women were told to be quiet, to stay at home, to smile and obey. But Marilyn didn't follow the rules. She built her own company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, at a time when studios controlled everything. She demanded better roles, not just sexy ones. She fought for higher pay, equal to male actors. She studied acting deeply because she didn't want to be just pretty. She wanted to be respected. She made mistakes. She cried. She fell apart sometimes. But she never stopped trying. She walked into rooms where no woman had power, and she made them look at her differently. She became a symbol of courage in heels. She gave a voice to the silenced. In her time, people didn't talk about depression, sexual abuse, mental illness, loneliness, miscarriage, self-worth. But Marilyn lived all of it, and still stood up, smiled, and said, "I'm not perfect, but I'm real." She didn't hide her pain. She didn't pretend to be strong. And in doing that, she made millions of people feel seen. Even today, people who suffer in silence look at her and think, if she could go through all that, maybe I can survive too. She gave strength to people who were too afraid to speak. She didn't have a rich father. She didn't go to the best schools. She didn't have support. She was told she was nothing. But she became everything. She didn't become successful because she had money. She became successful because she never stopped dreaming, even when the world told her to give up. That's why her story matters. That's why it touches people. In every country, in every language. 5 powerful life lessons from Marilyn Monroe. 1. You don't need a perfect past to create a powerful future. Marilyn came from abuse, orphanages, and deep sadness. But she didn't let her past define her future. She used her pain and built something beautiful. Lesson: your past is not your prison. It can become your power. 2. Fame and money can't replace love and peace. She had beauty. She had wealth. She had fans. But her heart was still searching for something real. Lesson: don't chase the spotlight. Chase peace. Chase truth. Chase people who stay. 3. Don't be afraid to demand respect, even if they call you difficult. She said no. She asked for better roles. She refused to be treated like an object. And they called her hard to work with. But later, they respected her. Lesson: speak up, even if your voice shakes, even if they hate you for it. Your worth is not up for debate. 4. Healing is hard, and it's okay to fall sometimes. She wasn't always strong. She cried, she broke down, she made mistakes, but she kept trying. Lesson: healing is not a straight line. It's messy, but every time you get back up, you grow stronger. 5. Your real value is not in your looks. It's in your soul. The world loved Marilyn for her face. But today, people love her more for her depth, her thoughts, her heart, her truth. Lesson: beauty fades, but your words, your kindness, your courage, that's what people will remember. Many people ask, what if someone had hugged her that night? What if someone had picked up the phone? What if someone had said, "You matter," before it was too late? Maybe she would have lived. Maybe she would have become a mother. Maybe she would have written books, directed films, taught young actors. But we can't go back. What we can do is learn. We can speak kindly to those who are suffering. We can forgive ourselves for falling. We can stop judging people by what they show on the outside, because even the ones with the biggest smiles might be the ones hiding the deepest pain. Marilyn Monroe didn't get the ending she deserved, but her story is not just about sadness. It's about survival, courage, fighting back when everything tries to break you, and still smiling, still trying, still believing that love is possible. She said, keep smiling, because life is a beautiful thing, and there's so much to smile about. So we smile, we cry, and we remember her, not just as a blonde beauty, but as a girl who tried, who fell, who rose, and who still lives. In every heart that feels too soft for this hard world. And that was the unforgettable story of Marilyn Monroe. A story of pain, power, beauty, and truth. If you felt something in your heart today, if you want to hear more inspiring stories like this, and if you want to learn English in the most emotional and powerful way, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Every day we bring you stories that teach you English, and also teach you life. Stories that make you think, feel, and grow. This is not just a channel. This is your place to learn, to improve, and to feel stronger every day. So hit that subscribe button and join me again tomorrow for another powerful story, another lesson, and another step toward becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye.